we just revise yesterday's work first and then we move it. Always keep your books open when we are revising so that you're able to recall the words directly from the book itself. Now, we started yesterday with the chapter of company audit, and under company audit we started with section 141. Now, this chapter is audit as per your Companies Act. We also have audit as per your Income Tax Act, that we call it as tax audit. We also have audit as per your GST laws, that we'll call it as GST audit. We have tax audit, we have GST audit in our syllabus, but that will be done later. This is only the audit done as per your Companies Act. This is mandatory for all companies. This is mandatory for all companies. Tax audit, GST audit is not mandatory for all. Wahan pe the limits of turnover are given. Now, who is qualified to become an auditor of a company? So, for qualification, we have subsection 1 and 2. So, they say that a chartered accountant within the meaning of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. I tell you, Companies Act doesn't use the word holding COP. They don't use the word holding COP. They use the word within the meaning of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. And Chartered Accountants Act 1949 says, if you want to become an auditor, you need to hold COP. Okay, we can also appoint a firm. A firm where majority of the partners are qualified for appointment as an auditor may be appointed in its firm name. The firm where majority of the partners are qualified for appointment means majority partners should be chartered accountant holding COP. And whenever a firm is appointed, who are authorized to act and sign? Chartered accountant. Now, when they use the word chartered accountant, it's within the meaning of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. So, for signing, partner can sign who is a chartered accountant holding COP. Then we went on to the disqualification. Under disqualification, we have just done A, B, C, D. Point number A was a body corporate other than an LLP. All types of body corporates are disqualified other than LLP. Now see, body corporate is nothing but something which has an artificial legal existence. To punish an artificial person becomes difficult. That's why they are not allowed to become auditor. LLP is a body corporate, but they are specifically excluded from disqualification. The reason is under LLP Act, there is one clause. If partners do something wrong, knowingly, willfully, they will not have a limited liability, they will have a unlimited liability. So all body corporates are disqualified other than an LLP. B was officer or employee of the company. He is disqualified to be auditor only for that company, not the group companies. Third one was partner or employee of officer or employee of the company. Officer, employee disqualified. Their partners, their employees are also disqualified. But again, they are disqualified only for that company, not group companies. And the D point which we had done was, if you, your relative or your partner, your relative or your partner is holding any security in the company or its group. Now, group means subsidiary, holding, associate, other subsidiary of same holding company. So if you, your relative or your partner is holding any security in the company or group, you are disqualified. Our relative can hold up to a face value not exceeding 1 lakh. Now, is the limit per relative or all relatives together? All relatives together. Remember, we had a question yesterday. Your daughter was holding and daughter's husband was holding. That is all relatives together. It should not exceed 1 lakh. And if relative holding exceeds 1 lakh, you are given how many days? 60 days for corrective action. So, day when the holding exceeds 1 lakh, immediately you don't become disqualified. You become disqualified after 60 days. Now, you can't hold a single share. Your partner can't hold a single share. Only your relatives can hold up to a face value not exceeding 1 lakh. Word is face value. And corrective action is also when relative holding exceeds 1 lakh. My partner bought the share, sold it within 60 days. That is not allowed. Still, you will be disqualified. Okay, in that D point only, the second point was, you, your relative or your partner is indebted to the company or group for amount exceeding rupees 5 lakh. And the third one was, you, your relative or your partner has given a guarantee or provided security to the company or group for the indebtedness of third person. You have given a guarantee to the company or group for the indebtedness of third person. We have given guarantee to the company for someone else. If company gave a guarantee on my behalf, that is not covered over here. You giving guarantee to the company or group on behalf of someone else. That was basically covered. This is what we had done yesterday. Any doubts in yesterday's work? Any doubts? Anybody in yesterday's work? Okay, let us move ahead. Now we go to your point number E. Just a minute. Shall we start? Okay. So point number E is a person or a firm having a business relationship with the company or group. So if at all we have a business relationship, like we are a principal supplier or we are a customer of their, that is basically a business relationship. If we are having business relationship not only with the company or group, directly or indirectly, means not only you, if your relative is having a business relationship, then also you will get disqualified. Many times I don't directly purchase, I purchase via my relative, or I purchase via some another firm which has been set up by me, or via another company set up by me, still I will be said to be disqualified. Now, say for example, I hold a SIM card of Vodafone Idea Limited. If I hold a SIM card of Vodafone Idea Limited, can I say I become a customer of Vodafone Idea Limited? Yes, no? I am their customer. They are a provider of service to me. Now, is customer relationship coming under the word business relationship? If I am their customer, is it a business relationship? If I have a business relationship with the company or group, I become disqualified. Being a customer of the company, is it a business relationship? Yes, no? They are providing me service, I am their customer. It's what? Personal relationship? Business, yeah, it's definitely a business relationship. If I am a customer of there, that's a business relationship. But now problem is, sir, if it's a business relationship, would I be disqualified? Okay, so first of all, the word business relationship. What do we mean by the word business relationship? Any transaction entered which is of commercial nature. Any transaction entered which is of which nature? Commercial nature. That's basically a business relationship. But they were given two exceptions. So now, one question, I am a chartered accountant. Can I say I go and do audit over there? If I am an auditor, I'll go and do audit. Now, if I am going and doing audit over there, or if I am providing them some other services as well, is it a business relationship or a personal relationship? I go and provide some services to them. That is a business relationship or personal? Business. So now, that is accepted. That is fine. If you see the word written over here, they say that your business relationship shall mean any transaction which is entered into for commercial purpose, except you go and give them some professional services. So professional services which are permitted to be rendered by an auditor, if you are giving it, that's not a part of business relationship, that's fine. And for certain classes of industry, you are taking their goods or services, like just now I gave an example, Vodafone Idea Limited, I am their customer. Can I say they are supplying me goods or services? If say for example, we have Future Retail Limited. Future Retail Limited is the company under which we have Big Bazaar. Imagine, I am an auditor of Big Bazaar. Now if I go and do shopping at Big Bazaar, can I say I become their customer? And customer is nothing but which relationship? Business. But that is fine. Certain classes of business, if we have a sale, purchase of goods or services which are done at an arm's length price. Which are done at which price? Arm's length. They should not give me any specific discount. They give me the same discount which is given to everyone. So if I am an auditor of Future Retail Limited, can I go and buy goods from Big Bazaar? Yes. If I am an auditor of Vodafone Idea Limited, can I use a SIM card of Vodafone Idea Limited? Yes. But only thing is, they should not give me any special discount. If I am an auditor of Indian Hotels Limited, Taj Group of Hotels comes under Indian Hotels Limited. If I am an auditor of Indian Hotels Limited, can I go and celebrate any of the anniversaries or birthdays at Taj? Definitely yes, but they should not give you any specific discount. Means they should give you only the discounts which are given to other people, no special discount. Now, each of the clauses, whatever clauses we are doing, each of the clauses are to be interpreted separately. All are separate clauses. For example, Taj comes out with a scheme. That if you celebrate any function at Taj, and if your billing is more than 10 lakh, we allow you to pay in installment. If your billing is more than 10 lakh, we allow you to pay it in installment. Half you pay now, half you pay after 2 months. The Taj Group of Hotels came out with a scheme that if at all you celebrate a function, billing is more than 10 lakh, half you pay now, half you have to pay after 2 months. But they will take your credit card information so that if you don't pay, they will deduct it from credit card. Now imagine, suppose there is a chartered accountant who is an auditor of Taj. There is a chartered accountant who is an auditor of Taj. He celebrated his 25th anniversary at Taj. He celebrated his 25th anniversary at Taj. Can I say become a customer over there? Is it fine? Not fine. If it is an arm's length price transaction, they should not give me any specific discount. Okay, so that auditor of Taj Group of Hotels, he celebrated his anniversary at Taj only, and his billing came to 12 lakhs. And his billing came to 12 lakhs. Now what is the facility given to everyone? Half you pay now, half after 2 months. That's normal to everyone. So he also got a similar offer. Half he paid now 6 lakhs. Remaining 6 lakh you'll pay after 2 months. Is it arm's length or not? Yes. So he's not disqualified here, but he'll be disqualified under that indebtedness clause. Indebtedness exceeds 5 lakh. That's why I said all the clauses are to be interpreted separately. Clear with this? He is not disqualified here. Here the transaction is arm's length, but under your basically indebtedness clause, the indebtedness is exceeding 5 lakh rupee, he becomes disqualified. Okay, so they are telling, if you have any business relationship with the company or group, you are disqualified. Exception is, you go and provide services, that is fine. And for certain classes of business, when the transactions are at which price? Arm's length. The transactions which are in ordinary course of business at arm's length price, like sale purchase of goods or services. And which type of businesses they are telling? Telecommunication, airlines. If I am an auditor of Indigo Airlines Limited, it doesn't mean I should not fly by Indigo. I can fly by Indigo, I become their customer, but they should not give me any special discount. Hospitals, say Apollo Hospitals Limited. If I am an auditor, it is not that I cannot get my surgery done at Apollo. Now, if I get a surgery done at Apollo, I become their customer, but they should not give me any specific discount. So, telecommunication, airline, hospitals, hotels, and such similar business, like your Big Bazaar kind of thing, so that all is fine, but they should not give you specific discount. Okay, there's a question number 21. Mr. Fat, auditor of Thin Limited, has his office and a residence in a building owned by Thin Limited. Okay, Mr. Fat, auditor of Thin Limited, has his office and residence in a building owned by whom? Okay, so can I say company has a building which is owned and they've given it on rent to the auditor. The auditor has taken a property on rent. Now, if I take a property on rent, office building taken on rent, is it a commercial transaction or a personal transaction? Commercial. So can I say it falls under your commercial nature? Now, we need to see that the transaction should be at which price? Arm's length. Now, the Fat has been given 10% concession in rent. Mr. Fat has been given 10% concession in rent. Is it arm's length or no? No, not an arm's length, because they have given you 10% concession. So what will happen? You will become disqualified. So whether you are allowed, the answer is no. Answer will be what? Disqualified. As it is not at arm's length price. As it is not at arm's length price. Now see the line written, if no discount was given. If no discount was given, then auditor would be qualified. If no discount was given, then auditor would be qualified. Okay, next one, F point. Next one, F point. A person whose relative is a director or a KMP. Whose relative is what? Director or a KMP. If my relative is a director in your company, or if my relative is a KMP, I will be disqualified to become auditor in that company, not group companies. I am disqualified only in that company, not group companies. So it is only for that company, not group companies. Just write over there. It is only for that company, not group company. See, if it is a group companies, they have to specifically write. If you see your clause number D, if you see your clause number E, they have specifically written company, subsidiary company, holding company, associate company, other subsidiaries of same holding. They have specifically written. If they don't write, means it's only applicable for that company, not group companies. The person whose relative is a director or a KMP, person whose relative is a director or KMP, then you are disqualified to be auditor of that company, not group companies. Now question, my father is working as an accountant in Reliance Industries Limited. My father is working as what? Accountant. Okay, whether father falls under word relative? Yes. Now he is working as accountant in Reliance Industries Limited. Can I be auditor of Reliance Industries Limited? See, when are you disqualified? When your relative is a director or KMP. My father is a normal accountant. Is he a director? No. Is he a KMP? No. So I am not disqualified. But if my father is basically working as a KMP in that company, then I become disqualified. Okay. So A's father is a director in B Limited subsidiary. Question 22. A's father is a director where? In B Limited subsidiary company. So A's father is a director in B Limited's subsidiary. So you will be disqualified only in that B Limited's subsidiary. Can you be appointed as an auditor of B Limited? Answer is yes. So can Mr. A be appointed as auditor of B Limited? Answer is yes. He is disqualified only in which company? B Limited's subsidiary company, where his father is director. He is disqualified only in B Limited subsidiary company where his father is director. Okay. Whether a person whose relative is a director or employee, whether a person whose relative is what? A director or what? Employee, be appointed as auditor of that company. If my relative is a director or employee of a company, can I be appointed as auditor of that company? Now, if relative is director, if my relative is director in the company, can I be appointed as auditor? Yes, no? No. Now, if relative is employee, if relative is employee, now in that, other than KMP, yes, but KMP, no. So if my relative is a director, no, I cannot be appointed as auditor. If my relative is an employee, I have to see if he is a normal employee, I can be appointed. Other than KMP, yes, I can be appointed, but KMP, then I cannot be appointed. Anywhere if you're stuck up, please stop me at the same time. And make sure you're constantly writing, constantly marking the things. If you are active, you'll definitely not feel bored. Okay, G point. A person who is in full-time employment elsewhere. Now see, they are telling very logical. If you're already in full-time employment, you don't have time to do audits. And if you don't have time to do audits, you are not allowed to become auditor. See, audit is not just signing. Audit is, you have to first check the things. So if you are in full-time employment elsewhere, you are disqualified to be auditor. Now just pay attention. I told you yesterday that one partner, when one partner is disqualified, the firm is also disqualified. But don't apply it over here. Like out of ABC, 3 partners, A is in full-time employment. If A is in full-time employment, can I say A is disqualified? Now, it doesn't mean the firm is disqualified. Don't apply that rule here. Here, A is in full-time employment, A is disqualified. It doesn't mean the firm is disqualified. Firm can still be appointed as auditor. But we have a limit. How many audits one chartered accountant can do, company audits? So they were given a limit of 20. I'll come to that. They were given a limit of 20. So out of your 3 partners, 1 partner is in full-time employment. So for him, the limit will be counted as 0. For him, the limit will be counted as 0. But because he is in full-time employment, he is disqualified. Firm will not be disqualified. Don't apply that rule. 1 partner disqualified, firm disqualified. Don't apply it over here. Okay, if you are in full-time employment, you are disqualified. Or you already hold an audit. You already hold an audit of 20 companies. You're already holding an audit of how many companies? 20. If you hold for more than 20, that's not allowed. You are allowed to hold only 20 companies audit, but the 20 companies will not include. The 20 companies will not include your small company, OPC, dormant company. What is dormant? It's just on paper. They have stopped functioning. On paper, company is there, but they are not working. They are not operating. So that's basically a dormant company. And private limited company with a paid up capital less than 100 crores. Private limited company with a paid up capital less than 100 crores. Now, actually this was the thing. Last year one small amendment came that exemption will be available only for those companies. This all companies are exempted, provided they have filed their annual accounts and annual return on a timely basis to ROC. Provided what? They have filed their annual accounts and annual return on a timely basis to ROC. So these companies will not be counted in a limit of 20 provided they have not committed a default. They have not committed a default in filing its financial statement or its annual return. So if you are in full-time employment elsewhere, or you already hold an audit of 20 companies, you are disqualified. But our 20 companies will not include small company, OPC, dormant company, private limited company having a paid up capital less than 100 crore. It's the word is what? Paid up capital. It's not turnover. Paid up capital less than 100 crores. But this all companies are exempted provided they have filed their annual accounts and annual return on timely basis. If they have not filed annual accounts, annual return on timely basis, then you need to include that companies also in your limit of 20. This is what has been added additionally. Earlier it was not there. Clear with this? Shall I move it? Okay, now. They say that 20 audits can be taken. Now 20 audit ka limit. Is it chartered accountant wise or firm wise? Okay, so per chartered accountant who is in practice, we have a limit of 20. Now if we have 3 partners, A, B, C, so A can take 20, B can take 20, C can take 20. Okay, now how much audits can be taken by ABC and company, the firm? 60. Now see, whether you take audit in your individual name or whether you take audit in your firm name, aggregate should not exceed the limits. Like suppose, A, B and C are there, 3 partners, 3 chartered accountant holding COP. So ABC in individual name and the firm, ABC and company, together should not exceed 60. Whether you take an individual name, whether you take a firm name, it doesn't matter. The aggregate should not exceed 60 because there are 3 chartered accountants who are holding COP. Now someone asked me that, sir, imagine there are 3 partners A, B and C. The firm can take 60 audits. Now A already has 20 audits in personal name. How many audits A has in personal name? 20. So now how many can be taken by firm? 40. 40 can be taken by firm if A already has 20 in his personal name, assuming B and C does not have any audit in personal name. Now suppose A already has 20 audit in personal name. Fine. Now B and C doesn't have any audit. So now firm can take out of 60, 20 are there in personal name. Firm can take only what? 40. Now question came, A has 20 audit in personal name, A will sign. A will sign the 20 audits. Now, whenever firm was appointed, we already discussed who will sign on behalf of firm. All partners or any one? Any one of the partner will sign. Who is a chartered accountant holding COP? Now question is, can A sign it on behalf of firm? Someone said, sir, A has already signed 20 audits in personal name. So now 40 audits are there in firm name. Can it be signed by Mr. A on behalf of firm? So A will sign more than 20 audits. He is already having 20 audits in personal name. He has already signed that 20 audits. Now, firm is having 40 audits on behalf of firm. Can A again sign it? Yes, no? Or B and C should sign 2020. Now, whenever we are signing, the word which we write is for ABC and Company Chartered Accountants. For ABC and Company. You are signing on behalf of ABC. It doesn't mean it is your audit. If you sign, it doesn't mean it is your audit. If you sign, it doesn't mean it is your audit. You are just signing on behalf of firm. If at all, A has already having 20 audit in personal name. He has signed already 20. Now, firm can take extra 40 audit. Can that 40 audits be signed by A? Answer is yes. It's fine. Now, if there is a firm, there are 3 partners. Firm can take 60 audits. Can all 60 audits be signed by one partner? Yes. All 60 audits can be signed by one partner. He is not signing for himself. He is signing on behalf of firm. He is signing on behalf of firm. But while counting, personal plus firm audit together should not exceed 60 if there are 3 partners. The question, out of 3 partners, one is in full-time employment. Out of 3 partners, one is in full-time employment. So now firm can take 40. Whether in individual name or firm name, aggregate now should not exceed 40. Because one who is in full-time employment, for him the limit is 0. Okay, now question. I already have 60 audits. Firm already has 60 audits. We are offered a very big audit. Listed company audit comes. We are already having 60 audit. We are offered a very big company's audit. So what did we do is, we took that audit and then we added a 4th partner. So we already had 60 audit. We are offered a very big audit now. So we took it. We accepted it. And then we added a new partner because now we can't have 61 now. So what did we do? We added a new partner. Valid, not valid? Valid, not valid? First you need to add a new partner, then you can accept. The number of partners on the date of acceptance is to be seen. On the date of acceptance, there are 3 partners. I cannot accept 61st audit. First add a new partner. Okay, the check. Whether it is an individual name or firm name, you have to aggregate it. The number of partners on the date of acceptance is to be seen. And a CA is in full-time employment. For him, the limit is what? Nil. A CA who is in full-time employment, for him, the limit is nil. Shall not be taken into account while counting the limits. Now, this is limit as for company audit. This is a limit as per your Companies Act for what? Company audit. How many company audit one chartered accountant can do? 20. But 20 will not include few things. 20 will not include few things. That few things you can do unlimited. Small company, dormant company, OPC, private limited company having a paid up capital up to less than 100 crores. For tax audit, the limit given is 60. Per chartered accountant, the tax audits which can be done is 60. So ceiling on tax audit is 60. Fine. Now, they've given one Council Guidelines 2008. They've given some Council Guidelines 2008. This is based on the chapter of professional ethics. Under your Chartered Accountants Act, they came out with some guidelines for practicing members. And in that guidelines, they've said, you have a limit of 20. If you cross the limit, like I already have 20 audits, still I accepted 21st audit. In that case, you will be guilty of professional misconduct. You'll be guilty of professional misconduct and you'll be liable for penalties. What are the penalties? We'll learn in the chapter of professional ethics. What are the penalties? If you have more than 20 audits, you'll be liable for penalties. That will be under your chapter of professional ethics. And actually we have to maintain a register. We are required to maintain a register which all companies we are having audit. So a register is maintained by us. Register, nowadays the details are also to be filed online with ICAI as well. And now NAFRA is coming up. NAFRA has also demanded that the chartered accountant should file a form wherein they are telling that how many audits they are having it, so that they know that we are not having more than 20 audits. So this is actually a part of professional ethics. So if you are having more than 20 audits, you will be guilty of professional misconduct. You will be liable for penalties. What are the penalties? We'll learn in professional ethics chapter. Okay, next question number 24. Mark that as important. Question 24. Mark it as important. Okay, ABC and Company is an audit firm having 3 partners, ABC. All are chartered accountants. And ABC are holding appointment as an auditor. ABC are holding appointment as an auditor in 4, 6 and 10 companies. Can I say there's nothing but in which name? Individual name. They have it in their individual name, 4, 6 and 10. So this are in individual name. Now whether you have an individual name or firm name, the aggregate should not exceed what? 60, because there are 3 partners. Provide the maximum number of audit remaining in firm name. What are the maximum audit remaining in firm name? Total is 60. How many are already there in personal name? 4, 6, 10. We remove it. So how many are remaining in firm name? 40. Out of 60, 4, 6, 10 are already there in firm individual name. Remaining will be 40 audits. Now see, this is common question. This is common, and then they are having 1, 2 and 3. This is common, and now we are having 1, 2 and 3. This was the first question. Now second. Maximum number of audits remaining in individual names of partner. Okay, A is already having what? 4. How many are remaining? 16. Okay, B is already having 6. How many are remaining? 14. And C is already having 10. How many are remaining is 10. These are the maximum number of audit remaining in individual names. Third one. ABC and Company. Can ABC and Company accept appointment as an auditor in 60 private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crores? Okay, now common part says already 4, 6, 10 are in individual name. So 20 are already there in individual name. Firm can take what? 40. 4, 6, 10 are in individual name. Firm can take 40. Now question is, can the firm take 60 private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crore? Private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crore. Counted? Not counted. Not counted. 2 small companies. Counted? Not counted. Not counted. 1 dormant company. Counted? Not counted. Not counted. So can we take this? Yeah, we can take all of it. So can ABC and Company take all this? Answer is yes. As all the above companies are not included in counting the limits. All the above companies are not to be included while counting the limits. Clear with this? Now, would your answer be different? Would your answer be different if out of 60 private companies, 45 have a paid up capital of 110 crore? 45 have a paid up capital of 110. So can I say that 45 are to be included in the limit? 45 are to be included. 45 have a paid up capital 110, and remaining 15, total are 60, no? 60 private company, 45 have a paid up capital 110. The remaining 15 have a paid up capital less than 100 crores. The remaining 15 have a paid up capital less than 100, that we can take. Okay, 45 have a paid up capital 110. I can't take 45. Why I can't take? Already 20 are there in individual name. So now I can take only what? 40. So 45 nahi le sakte. Would your answer be different? Would your answer be different? Answer is yes. So out of 45 private companies having paid up capital 110 crores, comma, firm can take only 40 private companies. As 20 audits are already in which name? 20 audits are already in personal name or individual names of partner. So 20 are already there in personal name of partner. So we can take only 40. 45 we can't take. Now the remaining 15 private companies. Remaining 15 private companies having paid up capital less than 100 crores. 15 private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crores. 2 small companies and 1 dormant company can be taken as they are not counted in limit. As they are not counted in limit. Now, if I was setting a paper now, I'll make this question a little bit more difficult. What I'll do is, say for example, when they said the earlier question, 60 private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crores but have not filed annual accounts or annual return on a timely basis. Then can I say I have to include it? And if I have to include it, can I take that 60? No, I can take only 40. So they have not given in the question whether they have filed annual accounts, annual return on timely. So if I am writing the answer, I have to write, we assume that they have filed annual accounts, annual return on a timely basis. So when you are explaining provision, explain that line also, that assuming that they have filed their annual accounts, annual return on a timely basis, they are not to be included in limits. Okay, so would your answer be different? Answer is yes. Now out of 60, 45 have a paid up capital 110. Already 20 are there in personal name. We can take 40. We cannot take 45. So 45 ke badle we take 40. Remaining 15 private companies having a paid up capital less than 100 crore. 2 small company, 1 dormant company, that can be taken. They are not included in your limits. Yes or no? Shall I move it? Next. KBC and Company, a firm of chartered accountant having 3 partners. KBC and Company, a firm of chartered accountant having 3 partners. KBC, K is in whole-time employment. Okay, if K is in whole-time employment, how many audits we can take for K? Nothing. So firm level, how many can be taken? 40. The firm is offered an audit of ABC Limited and is already holding audit of 40 companies. You already hold audit of 40 companies and you are offered audit of ABC Limited. It's a public company. It's not a private company. It will not fall under exemption. It is to be counted. Can I take it? No. So it is disqualified as already limit is reached. So out of 3, 1 is in full-time employment. For him, the limit is 0. For remaining partner, 2. So we can take how many audits? 40. See, K is in full-time employment elsewhere. Therefore, he will be excluded while determining the number of company audit that a firm can hold. He will be excluded while determining the number of company audit that a firm can hold. Okay, next one, H. Yes, please. Again, please. Now see, the wordings which are written over here is, they have filed their annual accounts, annual return, as per your section 92 and section 137 of the Act. Now 137 and 92 has given the limits. If in that limits they have been filed, then only they are excluded. If at all they will be filing late, still they are to be included in your limit of 20. Okay, next we go to H point. Now H point says, a person who has been convicted by a court of an offense involving fraud. A person who has been convicted by court, the word is court, of an offense involving fraud, then you are disqualified for a period of 10 years. 10 years have not elapsed since the date of conviction. Imagine a chartered accountant helped the management in committing frauds. A chartered accountant helped the management in committing frauds, and now he was held guilty by court. Court put him in jail for 2 years. Court put him in jail for 2 years. After coming out of jail, can he again start doing the audit? No, he's disqualified for a period of 10 years. Okay, the person who has been convicted, a person who has been convicted by court. Now word is what? Convicted. Convicted is nothing but held guilty. It's not the case is going on. It's not case going on. You should be held guilty of an offense involving fraud, and 10 years have not elapsed from the date of such conviction. You're disqualified for a period of 10 years. And last one, I point, any person directly or indirectly renders any services given under section 144 to the company or its holding company or its subsidiary company. If you are giving services covered under 144, to whom? Company, subsidiary company, holding company. They've written only these three. Okay, the question, can I give the services to the associate company? I cannot give it to the company or the holding company or subsidiary. Can I give it to the associate company of the company? Yes. Can I give it to other subsidiaries of the same holding company? Yes. Earlier they had written, if you see point number D and E, the word written is subsidiary, holding, associate, other subsidiaries of same holding. But here the word is subsidiary and holding. So I just write over here the word. Its associate company and its other subsidiaries of same holding. Is not written. Therefore, services covered under section 144 can be provided to them. Okay. They're just writing you should not provide the services to the company or its holding company or its subsidiary. Can I give the services to its associate company? Yes. Can I give the services to other subsidiaries of same holding? Yes. Okay. Now they had written the word directly or indirectly. They had written the word directly or indirectly. We just understand the meaning of the word directly or indirectly. Now directly or indirectly means, okay, directly or indirectly would mean okay, you should not provide the services. Your partner should not provide the services like an individual capacity. Your firm should not provide the services. Your relative should not provide the services. Your network or associate firm. Your network or associate firm should not provide the service. Now, what is this network firm? Network firm is nothing but the firms which are operating under a common brand name. The firms which are operating under what? Common brand name. Like we have a Deloitte Bangalore. We have a Deloitte Ahmedabad also. We have a Deloitte Bombay also. We have a Deloitte Hyderabad also. They are all different firms. Deloitte Bangalore has different partners. Deloitte Ahmedabad has different partners. Deloitte Bombay is having different partners. They are different firms, but operating under a common brand name. They are called as network firm. The network firm is nothing but they are operating under common brand name. Operating under common brand name. Just wait for 2 minutes, then you write. Associate firm. Associate firm is, I am a partner in ABC. I am also a partner in AXZ. I am a partner in ABC. I am also a partner in AXZ. So AXZ is said to be a kind of what? Associate firm. So such firms also should not be providing this services. So your main firm, your other firms where you are a partner. Associate firm is nothing but other firms where you or your partners are a partner. Where you or your partners are a partner. They also should not provide. Or many times we have an associate company. We are talking about associate company of chartered accountants. CAs a form a company. Can CAs form a company? Yeah, for providing what? Consultancy. But if at all we are the auditors, that our company which we have formed for giving consultancy, they should not give the services which are covered under section 144 to the company or to the holding company or its subsidiary company. So over here, your network or associate firm or company. So what is this associate company? This is the associate company not of the company. This is the associate company of whom? Chartered accountant. The chartered accountant had formed a company. So uska wo company hai, that's called as associate company of him. I am not talking about associate company of the company where we are auditor. We are talking about our associate company. Our associate company cannot provide the services which are covered under section 144 to the company or its holding company or its subsidiary company where we are a auditor. So directly or indirectly would mean you should not provide, your relative should not provide, your firm should not provide, your partner should not provide, your network firm or associate firm or your associate company, they should not provide the services given under 144 to the company or its holding company or its subsidiary company where we are a auditor. Yes or no? Shall I move it? This is associate company of a chartered accountant. Okay, now coming back, now if you want you can just write it down. So what is this associate firm? Associate firm is other firms where you or your partners are partners. And associate company is a company formed by CA for providing consultancy. This is company formed by chartered accountants for providing consultancy services. So wherever we are an auditor, wherever we are auditor, directly or indirectly, we should not provide services covered under 144 to the company where we are auditor, or to the holding company of that company, or to the subsidiary company of that company. Yeah, that is also associate entity. That is also associate entity. Now, actually what will happen is, see, they have not given any limits over here. They just say directly or indirectly, and they've interpreted. If you see here the word, I think they have defined also. If you just see the book itself, in the book they have given, yeah, on the next page, explanation, page 5.10. In case of auditor being an individual himself through relative or any other person connected or associated with such individual, or through any other entity whatsoever in which such individual has a significant influence or control. Now the word is other entity where I have a significant influence or control. Significant influence normally comes when you hold more than 20%. Control normally comes when you hold more than 50. But this is if it is a company. But imagine if it's not a company, if it is a partnership firm or something like that. So if I have a significant influence, power to participate in decision making process. What's the significant influence? Power to participate in decision making process. And control is power to govern the policies. What is control? Power to govern. I can govern your policies. And what is significant influence? I can just participate in decision making process. I cannot govern. I can just participate. There are other people also. I am allowed to participate. Control me, I am allowed to govern. So this is actually the word used. Company hoga, the 20% and 50%. Other than companies are there. Just see whether significant influence or control is there or not. And similarly, in case of firm, firm cannot provide through its partners, through its parent, subsidiary, associate entity. Now they are talking about parent, subsidiary, associate entity of the firm, of the chartered accountant. CA has formed a company, wo wala. Or through any other entity in which firm or partner has a significant influence or control, or the brand name which is used by that firm. So means a network firm operating under a common brand. This was a simplified version which I had wrote over here. Okay, anybody still 4? Okay, the section 144 says directly or indirectly you should not provide the following services to whom? To the entity, the company, or its holding company, or its subsidiary company. Now question arises, which services I am not allowed to provide? They're given a list of services. First one is accounting and bookkeeping. Now accounting and bookkeeping, why they are not allowing is, they are telling maker cannot be the checker. Maker cannot be what? Checker. If I am only preparing the financial statement, I cannot be doing audit. So because I only prepared, I can't point out the weakness of mine only. That's why accounting and bookkeeping is not allowed. Number 2, designing and implementing of financial information system. Designing and implementation of what? Financial information system. Okay, what do you mean by the word financial information system? Financial information system. Internal controls is fine. Simple words may, how the financials are being prepared. I only design the entire system, how accounting should be done, how financials are to be prepared. You can just write in simple words, the word financial information system. You can just write, right from transaction initiated. Right from transaction initiated to how it comes in financial statement. Right from transaction initiated to how it comes in financial statement. That entire process. Right from transaction initiated to how it comes in financial statement. The entire process. If I only have designed the process, like suppose, say you started your practice and there's one of your friend who became doctor. And after becoming doctor, he starts his own hospital. Now as he starts his own hospital, he is also required to maintain books of accounts. He doesn't know anything. So he called you And you tell him whenever a patient comes, you basically make entries in this register. At the end of the day, make this way the bills. So you have designed the entire financial reporting system. How the transaction is coming and how it is coming in financial statement. Which documents to be maintained, how bills are to be raised. Everything you only have told him. Now tell me, if you only have told him what to do. Now if you are only the auditor, so can I say again, he has done everything based on my advice. So now he has done whatever I have said. Now if I go and say this is wrong, what will he say? You only told it. So again that kind of maker checker wala thing will come because you have only advised it to make it in this way. So you are not allowed to become auditor in such companies. So if you have designed the financial information system, you cannot be a auditor. Third one is, second one was actually internal audit. Now what is this internal audit? Just write at the top. At the top you have a space, just write down one sentence, top or bottom. Just write down at the top or bottom. Internal audit is an audit conducted. Internal audit is an audit conducted on behalf of management. It is an audit conducted on behalf of management, which assists the management, or which helps the management, in fulfilling their responsibilities. Which helps the management in fulfilling their responsibilities. Okay, so what is an internal audit? It's an audit conducted on behalf of management, which helps the management in fulfilling their responsibilities. Now let us just discuss what are the responsibilities of management. What are the responsibilities of management? Okay, preparation of financial statement. Who is responsible? Management is responsible for preparing the financial statement. Safeguarding the assets. They have the assets. Assets are put to use properly. People are not stealing away the asset. Who has to take care? Manager. Auditor will come and see whether they are basically safeguarded or not. But it is not my duty to stand over there and see that, oh, no one is taking away asset. So again, it's a responsibility of management. That's why they put CCTV cameras and all that things. Okay, now prevention and detection of frauds and errors. Again, it's a responsibility of management. See, auditor's responsibility is never to find out all the frauds and errors. You already done SA 200. In your SA 200, our objective is to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, and then we are required to give a report. So our objective is actually to report whether the financial statements are showing a true and fair. We have to just obtain a reasonable assurance. Our responsibility is not to detect all frauds and errors. Primary responsibility of prevention and detection of frauds and error is of management. And for that purpose, they establish good internal controls. Who establishes internal control? Auditor doesn't establish. Auditor will come and check. Who establishes internal control? Management. Now, what are internal controls? What do you mean by the word internal controls? They are the policies and procedures adopted by the management. They are what? Policies and procedures adopted by the management that helps the management in fulfilling their objectives. Internal controls are policies and procedure adopted by the management which helps the management in fulfilling their responsibilities. Like management wants to ensure that they are complying with all the laws and regulations properly. That they have prepared a kind of checklist, or they put a reminders. Like every 5th the message comes, pay TDS, because last date of payment of TDS is what? 7th. Okay, every 15th they have a pop-up coming up, pay GST, because last date for payment of GST is 20th. So they have basically set that reminder. So that is a system, policies or procedures adopted by management that is helping the management in fulfilling their responsibility. Who has to comply with laws and regulation? Management. I will come and check whether you complied or no. But it is their responsibility to comply. It is their responsibility to ensure the business is running smoothly. So they establish internal control. Like whenever you go for taking your material, whenever you go for taking a material, they make you sign a register. Why do they make you sign a register? So that it's a proof with them that you already taken the book and you don't go and take it again. So that getting a signature on register, that is also a part of internal controls. Okay, whenever you are entering the class, they check your ID card. Why they are checking ID card? Only those students who have paid fees, they are sitting, others are not sitting. That is also a part of what? Internal controls. The internal control are policies and procedures adopted by management, which helps the management in fulfilling their response. There are so many responsibilities of management. Preparation of financial statement, complying with laws and regulation, safeguarding the asset, orderly conduct of business. They are all responsibilities of whom? Management. Internal auditor helps the management. Internal auditor what? Helps the man. Internal auditor never reports on financial statement. He doesn't say financial statement shows a true and fair view. Internal auditor helps the management in their working. So whatever management says, that will be done by internal auditor. What is the scope of internal auditor? As decided by internal auditor and management mutually. Whatever management will say, that he will do. He will focus more on internal controls, whether the controls are operating properly or not. So it's an audit conducted on behalf of management, which assists the management in fulfilling their responsibilities. Now, tell me, if I am an internal auditor, I am working for whom? Management. Now, if you are working for management, so can I say that whatever they say, you will do that? So you are kind of very close to them and you follow their instructions. But whenever you are a company auditor, you work what? For management, or you work independently? Independent. Now, just tell me one thing. If I am an internal auditor also, even if I am a company auditor also, same company, I am a company auditor, I am an internal auditor. So one place I will follow their orders. One place I'll work independently. That is kind of conflicting. That's why they don't allow you to become internal auditor. So if you are providing internal audit service, you cannot be the auditor of that company or its holding company or its subsidiary company. Remember, you cannot give these services to whom? Company or the holding company or the subsidiary company. Okay, now question. If I am a company auditor of a company, can I also become a tax auditor of same company? I am a company auditor of company. Can I become a tax auditor of the same company? Yes. I am a company auditor of company. Can I become a GST auditor also of the same company? Yeah, because tax auditor, GST auditor, company auditor, they all are independent person. The internal auditor is not an independent person. He works for management. If you are a company auditor and you are also internal auditor of same company, that is conflicting roles. One you are working for management, one you are working independently. That's a kind of conflicting roles. If you are an internal auditor, you cannot become company auditor of the same company or its holding company or a subsidiary company. Clear with this? Okay, fourth one they've given is basically your actuarial services. Now, the word actuary, whenever we go to a big companies, they make provision for gratuity. Employees will give you service and you have to pay them gratuity when they retire, not today, in future. But can I say I've received the service now also? So they will give me service for say 10, 15, 20 years. If they retire after 20 years, I have to pay them the gratuity when? After 20 years. Okay, I have to pay after 20 years. But it is not an expense of 20th year. It's an expense over a period of 20 years. Because I'm getting service every year. So can I say I need to make a provision for gratuity every year? Okay, how do we make provision for gratuity? It's based on actuarial valuation. Under your AS also, under your Ind AS also, it is said that provision for gratuity should be based on actuarial valuation. The company will be taking a certificate or a report from actuary. Company will be taking a report or a certificate from actuary. Yeah, that clear? Now question. We are three partners, ABC. A and B are chartered accountant holding COP. C is a actuary. A and B are chartered accountant holding COP. C is a actuary. Now, company wanted to make provision for gratuity. They needed an actuarial valuation. C has provided the actuarial valuation. Who has provided? C. Can I say our partner only? If our partner has provided an actuarial valuation certificate based on which they have accounted, so they made a provision based on certificate given by our partner, then we cannot be the auditor. Because otherwise again what will happen? maker checker. I only told you to account at this value. I cannot do the audit. So if your partner was an actuary over there, he has given the actuarial valuation, they accounted based on your certificate. Now you cannot be the auditor in that company or its subsidiary or its holding. Again, the concept of maker checker will come. Next, investment advisory, investment banking. Now, what is this investment advisory, investment banking? Investment advisory services is nothing but advising on where to invest. Investment advisory is right over there. Advising on where to invest. Advising on where to invest. And investment banking is advising on how to raise funds. Investment banking is what? Advising on how to raise funds. Okay. Again, if you are giving this services, investment advisory, I am your investment advisor, you make all your investments based on my advice. So can I say I'll be very close to you? You take investment advice from whom? The people whom you are very close. And it will not be kind of one odd thing. So if you are an investment advisor of the entity, you are very close to that entity, you are very close to the management. Now if you are very close to management, and now if you are called upon to work independently, your independence will be a bit affected. And that's why they don't allow you to become an investment advisor. Same way, investment banking service, I tell you how to raise the funds. Different alternatives are there, equity issue, debt issue, preference shares issue, taking a loan, and I am a mediator everywhere. So can I say I'm working for management? And if I'm working for management, helping them in raising the funds, now I cannot be working independently. Again, what will happen is conflicting roles. One place you say you work independently, second place you say you work as a mediator with the management and the banks or management and the public issue ke liye, whatever requirements merchant bankers are having, you stay in between. So then you are having a kind of conflicting roles, and that's why again they are not allowing you. Investment advisory, investment banking. Yes, please, you had some doubt? Then also you are disqualified. Reason is you should not provide the services directly or indirectly. If my relative is actuary, still I am not allowed to become an auditor of that company or its holding company or its subsidiary company. Clear with this? Okay. After that, they had given is rendering of outsourced financial services. Rendering of outsourced financial services. Some financial services I am providing. Like I tell you a simple thing. There's a company named as Arvind Limited. Arvind Limited is into manufacturing of ready-made garments. All the branded garments which we are having, mostly there are two big players in India, Arvind Limited and Aditya Birla Fashion. So two big players are there, like US Polo, United Colors of Benetton, Calvin Klein. They are all coming under your Arvind Limited. But Van Heusen, Allen Solly, they all go under Aditya Birla. Main two big players are there. Okay. Now, what Arvind Limited has done, they have hired a chartered accountant firm for preparing BRS. For what purpose? For preparing BRS. My work of preparing BRS is outsourced to them. And another work which they outsource is vendor payments. What I outsource? Many times what used to happen is, whenever I'm making payment to vendor, I have to deduct TDS. They were deducting TDS at a wrong rate, or sometimes the TDS was not deducted. Because of that, many expenses were getting disallowed. And they don't want to go into all that things, and they don't have adequate staff to basically measure that things properly. So they have outsourced the vendor payment to one chartered accountant. One CA firm is hired by them just to prepare BRS and to handle vendor payment. That whatever payments to vendors are done, all expenses, the Excel file will be sent to them. That CA firm will say under which head it should be going, how much TDS should be deducted, and based on that they will make payments. Can I say which type of services are outsourced to them? Financial or operational? Is it financial or operational? Financial. We are not outsourcing delivery function, or we are not outsourcing production function. That is basically what? Operational. The financial function like preparing BRS, vendor payment, collection from debtors, that all kind of work is basically outsourced to someone. Now that person cannot become our auditor. If a CA firm is providing that services, that CA firm cannot become the auditor of basically your Arvind Limited. Reason is they are very close to management. Each and every vendor payment, I am only telling them do this way. If I am telling you do this way, now I cannot be your auditor. Understood? Rendering of outsourced financial services. There are so many companies which does this. Arvind Limited pays approximately 1.5 lakh rupee a month to that chartered accountant just for preparing BRS and telling which all TDS to be deducted, how much to be deducted. Every transaction they will tell you this is the way you do payment. For that they are charging 1.5 lakh a month. So this kind of services are also outsourced to someone. If that chartered accountant is providing such services, he cannot become the auditor because he is very close to management. Each and every transaction, I am only telling what to do. Okay, next. Management services. Now, management services, actually this all words, they are not defined under Companies Act. If you see Companies Act definitions, they are not there. And in ICI book also, they are not there. Just the list is given. I am explaining you based on what is the general meaning of the terminologies. Management service is nothing but helping management in operational areas. Helping management in operational areas. Just you can write down over there, helping management in operational areas. Okay, I give an example. We were the auditors of Hitachi Limited. Basically air conditions of Hitachi are coming. So they had a manufacturing plant in Gujarat near Ahmedabad and we were the auditors. Now we were not the statutory auditors. We were internal auditors, or you can say management auditors. Now they asked us one question. Now Hitachi used to manufacture the air conditions. They supply it to their dealers and the dealers will sell it to the general public. So we have a shop owners or dealers, to them they sell, and shop owners and dealers will sell it to public. Now from the factory to the dealers, the ACs used to go by a hired transport. They asked us a question, should we buy our own trucks? So we had to prepare a full project report telling whether the hired transport which is being used is fine or should they come up with their own trucks. We prepared a project report, we gave it to them. That is nothing but which services? Management service. It's actually a part of internal audit, helping management in fulfilling their responsibilities. So management service is actually a part of what? Internal audit. We are helping the management in operational areas. Many times to reduce the wastages. They call us and they ask us, how do we reduce our wastages? We have done the chapters of process costing and all that things as well. So we understand the overall business scenario and we try to reduce or remove irrelevant processes which are there, and we try to see that the wastages come less. That type of services would fall under management service. But if you are providing management services, again you are very close to management. And if you become very close to management, now you cannot work independently. And the last one, any other services as may be prescribed. Till today nothing is prescribed. Okay, so what they are telling is, section 144 says what? You should not provide the following services directly or indirectly to the company or its holding company or its subsidiary company. Which services I should not provide? Accounting or bookkeeping, internal audit. Then we have designing and implementation of financial information system. Designing and implementation of financial. See, I don't understand designing of machine. I understand designing of accounting system. If I have designed your accounting system, then I cannot become your auditor. Fourth, actuarial services, investment advisory, investment banking. Then we are having is rendering of outsourced financial services. See, one is designing and second is I only do that work for you. So one is I tell you how to do and second is I do. I prepare BRS. That is basically rendering. And I tell you how to prepare BRS. That is what? Designing. So designing and implementation and rendering both are not allowed. And management services, any other service as may be prescribed. Now this 144 thing came up under new act. Old act it was not there. The old act many of these services we were allowed to provide. Many of the services under old act we were allowed to provide, but with new act coming, now you cannot provide these services if you are a auditor. Now question. I was already auditor, new act came, now they see I should not provide the services. So they gave you 1 year's time. They gave you what? 1 year's time. With the introduction of new act, if you are already providing services and doing audit, choose any one of them. Either continue with the audit or you continue with the services, whichever you want. So they were given 1 year's time. So if you just see over there, it may be noted that the audit or audit firm which had been performing any non-audit services on or before when? Commencement of this act, they have to comply with this provision before the closure of first financial year from the date of commencement of act. So within 1 year you have to choose. Now that today is irrelevant because already the act has came up. This is actually a section 144. Let us see some questions. Let us see the questions. Illustration number 27. Illustration number 27. Can a statutory auditor act for the same company, underline the word same company, as for the same company? Can I be internal auditor? Yes, no? Can I be internal auditor for the same company? No. Okay, second one may tax auditor you can add, or GST auditor. Tax auditor or GST auditor. Yes or no? Yes. I cannot be internal auditor, tax auditor or GST auditor. Yes. Can I be consultant for a service other than section 144? Can I be a consultant for service other than 144? Yes. You are not allowed to give services which are covered under 144. Other than 144, answer is yes, like taxation advisory, company law advisory, that all I can provide. And can you become a liquidator of a same company? Okay, first question. Can chartered accountants become a liquidator? Leave same company. Can chartered accountants become liquidator? Answer is yes. You are allowed to become a liquidator. Now, if you are allowed to become liquidator, but if you are an auditor of a company, for same company, you cannot be liquidator. Reason. What does liquidator do? Sell off the assets, pay off the liability. Can I say he is functioning as management? Actually, it is whose work? Management. Now, he will take the charge, he will sell the asset, he will pay liability. Can I say now he becomes a part of? Now, if you become a part of management, you cannot be the auditor in that company. So, can you be a liquidator and auditor of the same company? No. Okay. Some company I am a liquidator, some other company I am an auditor, that is fine. So, can you become a liquidator and auditor for the same company? Answer is no. So, first one answer is no, second one answer is yes, third one answer is yes, fourth one the answer is no. Okay, illustration number 28. C.A. Poshin is providing services of investment banking to C Limited. Later on, he was also offered to be appointed as auditor of the company for the current financial year. He is providing. Now the word is he is providing. It's not he was providing. He is. So you are currently providing investment banking service and now they offer you audit also. Can you accept the audit? No, you are disqualified. You are disqualified. Now if this question comes now, I need to actually write section 144. I actually have to write what? Section 144, and then I say that as he is providing investment banking services, he will be disqualified to become an auditor of the company. See, conclusions doesn't have mark. I'm telling you, if the question is of 4 or 5 marks, out of 4 or 5 marks, 1 or 1.5 is for conclusion. 3 to 3.5 marks are always for provision. If you don't write the provision, only conclusion is there, expect only 1.5 mark. You have to write the provisions properly. Okay, this was your question number 28. 29th. Mr. Aditya, a practicing CA. Mr. Aditya, a practicing CA, is appointed as tax consultant of ABC Limited, in which his father, Mr. Singhvi, is a managing director. Your father is a managing director. Okay, so qualified, not qualified. Okay, so right over there, not disqualified. Why is not disqualified? as he is appointed as, it's given already, Mr. Aditya is appointed as tax consultant, not as a statutory auditor. It's already given, he is appointed as tax consultant, not statutory auditor. So 28, the answer is disqualified. 29, the answer is not disqualified. Okay, this was your section 141 clubbed with section 144. 141 clubbed with 144. We just start with section 139. 139 is basically your appointment of auditor. Now 141, who can be auditor? What was 141? Who can be auditor? 139 is how to appoint auditor. 139 is how to appoint a auditor. Now first of all we have first auditor, then we have a subsequent auditor. First of all we have what? First auditor, then we'll have a subsequent auditor. Now both the things, first auditor, subsequent auditor, we will learn for a normal company, for a government company. For a normal company and then for a government company. Okay, the first auditor is given under 139 subsection 6 and subsection 7. 139 subsection 6 is appointment of first auditor for a normal company. 139(7) is appointment of first auditor for a government company. Okay, first of all, coming for a normal company. Now tell me, auditor works for whom? Auditor works for whom? Are you working for management? Are you working for shareholder? Whom? Okay, I got the word stakeholders. Now, whom do you report? Do I write to the stakeholders? No, what do I write? To the shareholders, to the members of ABC Limited. I don't report to the board of directors, I report to the members. So can I say I'm working for members? Now see, why do we have an audit compulsorily under company? Why under Companies Act audit is mandatory? Reason, owners are shareholder, but management is done by someone else. Owners wants to know the persons who are managing, they are not doing any frauds. So to safeguard the interest of owners, to safeguard what? Interest of owners who are not in management. To safeguard the interest of owners who are not in management, we have a mandatory audit as per your Companies Act. Now we are working for the shareholders. Shareholders wants to know the boards of directors are not doing anything wrong. So as we are working for shareholder, the appointment of auditor should also be done by shareholder. We are working for them, so they should appoint us. Nah? We are not working for management, we are working for shareholder. The shareholder should appoint. Nah? Internal auditor works for? So who should appoint him? Management. So they are appointed by board of directors. But main auditor, you are working for shareholder. So who should appoint you? Shareholder. But now the problem is, shareholders meet once in a year. We call it as AGM, Annual General Meeting. In extreme cases, emergency is there, we have a EGM, Extraordinary General Meeting. Clear with this? The shareholder normally meets once in a year, AGM. If emergency is there, there will be a EGM. Now, do you think appointment of auditor is such a big emergency? Now, if I call a EGM for just appointing auditor, company is formed, we need an auditor. AGM will come after a year. If just for appointing auditor, if I call a EGM, expense of calling a EGM might exceed the audit fees also. Because I have to send a notice to everyone, we call a meeting, everybody will come. So that expense might be more than the auditor fees only. And that's why only for the first auditor, I know normally auditor should be appointed by shareholder because he's working for shareholder. But it's not such a big emergency that we should call a EGM. And that's why just for first auditor, the power is given to board of directors. Because shareholders will meet afterwards. So now when first AGM will come, then onwards the appointment is done by shareholder. First auditor will be appointed by board of directors. First auditor will be appointed by board of directors within 30 days. Within 30 days from registration of the company. Registration is incorporation. What do you mean by the word registration? Incorporation. It will be appointed by BOD within 30 days of registration of the company. But if board fails, now board has power to appoint in 30 days. If board fails, they don't appoint in 30 days, then they have to inform to shareholders and the shareholders will appoint in next 90 days. They have to inform to whom? Shareholders, and shareholders will appoint in next 90 days by holding EGM. Now question, 90 days from which date? I give you three options. 90 days from incorporation, 90 days after completion of the 30 days, or 90 days from the date on which they get information. Board will inform to shareholder, na? So my question is, 90 days will be counted how? 90 days from incorporation of company, 90 days from completion of 30 days, board did not appoint in 30 days, and now within 90 days they will inform me, I will appoint, or once they inform me, then 90 days starts. Understood the question, no? Okay, 90 days would be from the completion of 30 days. See what they have written. The board has to appoint in 30 days. If they fail to appoint in 30 days, then they will inform and shareholders will appoint in 90 days. Both are together. They will inform and the shareholders will appoint in 90 days. So it is from completion of 30. Then after 30 days are over, they have to inform, shareholders appoint. That all thing has to be done in 90 days. So 90 days will be from the completion of 30 days. If you want, you can just write it. 90 days is from the completion of 30 days. From the completion of 30 days. And the first auditor will remain only till the conclusion of first AGM. AGM will come, then the power will switch over to whom? Shareholders. It is only till the conclusion of first AGM. Now question. Pay attention. They say that board will appoint in 30 days. Board will appoint in 30 days. Now, we have written a clause in our article of association allowing the board of directors. We have MOA, AOA. In MOA, AOA, and MOA, AOA is signed by the subscribers to the memorandum, or we can say initial shareholders. So they have signed it, and they say that we allow the BOD to appoint the first auditor within 3 months. Within how many months? 3 months of registration. Now, what does the Act say? 30 days. But MOA, AOMA, AOMA we have written, we allow you, even if you don't appoint in 30 days, you can still appoint in next 60 days also. Whether that is valid or not valid. A resolution passed, or basically a MOA, AOA telling that BOD can appoint even after 30 days. Valid, not valid? Not valid. You cannot do anything which is in violation of Act. Shareholders don't have a power to change the Act. You don't have a power to, it's a rules for your internal management. You can't change the Act. Now question. If board fails, board will inform, shareholder will appoint in 90 days. They will inform, I'll appoint, everything will be done in 90 days. So first 30 days, board has to appoint. If they don't appoint, they will inform, I'll appoint in next 90 days. Question is, what if the shareholders also fail to appoint in 90 days? What if the shareholder also fails to appoint in 90 days? Okay, they say shareholder has to appoint in 90 days. What if they don't appoint in 90 days? Central government. Okay, the power will go to central government. Now, actually, such a provision was there under Old Act. Such a provision was there under which Act? Old Act. Old Act means specifically it was written, board will appoint in 30 days. If they fail, shareholders will appoint. If shareholder fail, the power will go to CG. But such lines are not given under New Act. New Act means nothing is given. So what will happen? So shareholders only will appoint. They had to appoint in 90 days. If they don't appoint, still they only will appoint. But as they appoint late, company will have penalties. Power will not go to CG. It was specifically there in Old Act. New Act made is removed. So power will not go to CG. But if shareholders don't appoint in 90 days, they only will appoint. 90 ki jagah they appointed on 95th day. So they only will appoint. But as they appoint late, company will have penalties. So if shareholder don't appoint in 90 days, they only will appoint, but now they will have penalties. There's a question on it, I'll come to it. There's a question on it, I'll come to it, no need to write. Okay, now let us see the questions. This was for a normal company. Managing Director of PQR Limited himself, underline the word himself. Managing Director of PQR Limited himself wants to appoint Sri Ganpati, a practicing chartered accountant. Himself wants to appoint Sri Ganpati, a practicing chartered accountant, as the first auditor of the company. Okay, is the power given to managing director or the board of director? Oh, so managing director himself wants to appoint. Valid, not valid? Not valid. Answer is not valid. And Nietzsche, it's already written, it should be appointed by board of director, not managing director. Okay, 31st question. White Star Limited. White Star Limited was incorporated on 1809. White Star Limited was incorporated on 1809. Mr. T, who is related to the chairman of company. Mr. T, who is related to what? Chairman of the company, was appointed as auditor by board of directors in the meeting on 4/9/2009. 4/9/2009. Okay. When is the company incorporated? 1/8. BOD has to appoint within 30 days. 1/8 say 30 days is 31/8. 1/8 say 30 days is what? 31/8. They have to appoint by 31/8. But when did they appoint? 4/9. Can I say appointment is not within 30 days? That's not valid. And number two, if you see who is appointed? Relative of chairman. Now assuming chairman to be a director or a KMP. Assuming chairman to be what? Director or a KMP. If your relative is a director or a KMP, you are disqualified. So answer you just write over here. Not valid as per section 139 subsection 6 and 141 subsection 3 clause number F. If you check your F point, if your relative is a director or KMP, you are said to be disqualified. So not valid as per section 139 subsection 6 and your 141 subsection 3 clause number F. So both the things I need to write. Explain both, then you correlate the question and then to come to your conclusion. Next, Messrs. Verma and Sharma Chartered Accountants. Verma and Sharma Chartered Accountants were appointed as first auditor of Goodluck Limited by virtue of their names being included in AOA. By virtue of the names being included where? AOA. Now just the names of theirs are included under AOA. Just the names of them are included under AOA. So question, in AOA we wrote that Verma and Sharma will be the first auditors of the company. Valid, not valid? Not valid. See, Act has clearly written the first auditor should be appointed by board of director within 30 days. It has to be done in that way. Don't try to find any alternatives. Act says board within 30 days. If board fails, shareholders. But it has to be done in that way. You can't find the alternative means. By writing a name in AOA, can someone become auditor? No. So write over there, not valid. Not valid. Put a hyphen and write, it has to be appointed by BOD within 30 days. It has to be appointed by BOD within 30 days. Okay, now if you just check what they've written, the next question, question number 33. Question number 33. They're telling is first auditor holds office till the conclusion of first AGM. First auditor holds office till what? Conclusion of first AGM. Now, would he also cover the same period in audit? Would he also cover the same period in audit? Means, would he also audit till the conclusion of first AGM? Okay, suppose I tell you, imagine a company is incorporated on 1st May 2020. This is company incorporated. Okay, once the company is incorporated, the auditor should be appointed within how much time? 30 days. Okay, so imagine on 20th May 2020, 20th May 2020, auditor appointed. Auditor appointed by BOD. Valid, not valid? Valid. Okay, appointed by BOD. Okay, when will the year end? 31st March 21. The year ends. And after the year is over, there will be a board of directors meeting wherein they approve the financial statement. There will be which meeting? Board of directors meeting wherein they will approve. So suppose on 31st May 21, there is a board of directors meeting. Just pay attention, then you write. Wherein, what they are doing? They approve the financial statement and they will recommend the dividend. They will propose or they will recommend the dividend. Who proposes the dividend? Board of directors. Who will declare the dividend? Shareholders. Shareholders will declare the dividend. Same way. Who approves the financial statement? Board of directors. And then there will be a shareholders meeting. Say on 30th June. Say on 30th June 21, there is a shareholders meeting, which we also call it as what? AGM. Wherein they adopt the financial statement. What do they do? Adopt. They approve financial statement and they will recommend dividend or propose the dividend. And यहाँ पे they will adopt financial statement and they will declare the dividend. Okay. Now, first auditor remains till the conclusion of what? First AGM. First auditor remains till the conclusion of first AGM. Can I say is there till 30th June? Would you audit till 30th June? No. So, till what period you will audit? 31st March. So, see, period of appointment is different. And the period of audit is different. You are appointed till the conclusion of AGM. But you don't audit that. You audit the financial statement presented to shareholder during your period of appointment. You audit what? Financial statement presented to whom? Shareholder during your period of appointment. I am appointed on 20th May. When I am appointed? 20th May. Until which date? 30th June. But I don't audit 20th May to 30th June. I will be auditing is 1st May because company started on 1st May. Otherwise, normally it is 1st April. यहाँ पे 1st May to 31st March. Yeah, that clear? Okay, now what you can do is, you can just write down. First I dictate the theory, then you can write this example. Write down. Period of appointment. Period of appointment of auditor. And period of audit. Period of appointment of auditor and period of audit is different. Full stop. Auditor is appointed. Auditor is appointed to hold office. Auditor is appointed to hold office till the conclusion of AGM. Is appointed to hold office till the conclusion of AGM, but he will audit. The financial statements. But he will audit the financial statements presented to shareholders. During his period of appointment. He is appointed till AGM, but what he will audit? He will audit the financial statement presented to shareholder during his period of appointment. Okay, now just write this example. Just write this example. Okay, now we need to just write one more line. If you don't have a space, you can write at the end. If you don't have space, just write at the end. In above example, you can put a connector and write down. In above example, period of appointment. Period of appointment. Okay, when are you appointed? 20th May 2020. Period of appointment is equal to 20th May 2020 to 30th June 21. 20th May 20 to 30th June 21. While period of audit is equal to, the period of appointment is till 30th June. Period of audit is equal to, okay, which is the period which you will audit? 1st May 20 to 31st March 21. 1st May 20 to 31st March 21. So period of appointment is different, period of audit is different. Appointment is till AGM, we don't do audit till AGM, we audit what? Financial statement presented to shareholder during our period of appointment. Shall I move it? Okay, next question, question number 34. First auditor is appointed by BOD within 30 days. If BOD fails, shareholder will appoint in next 90 days. What if the shareholder fails to appoint in 90 days? What if they fail? Appointment will be done by shareholder itself, but as they appoint late, company will have penalties. So write down. Appointment will be done by shareholders only. Appointment will be done by shareholders only. But as they are appointing late, comma, company will have penalty. As they are appointing late, company will have penalty. Clear with this? This is your section 139 subsection 6. First auditor for which company? Normal company. Okay, we take a break of 5 minutes, then we start with first auditor of a government company.